Jack Neary, how you doing, my friend?
Good, buddy. How are you? Great to see you.
Likewise. It's been a while. I did not realize we kind of left off where we were going to continue on with the last interview. We left off on ignition, and we never got around to it, but today's the day.
Well, good. We can cover a lot of time on ignition for sure.
So I learned about ignition back in 2011 or so when I took a class from Speedy, gunsmithing class. I took a one-on-one, and I remember I had two brand new actions, custom actions, brand new, beautiful things. And I show up to Speedy because he's going to teach me how to chamber barrels. And that was before I used Borden action, so it was a different brand.
Right.
And I show up, and Speedy says, well, before we do anything on the barrels, we need to check the actions, make sure they're good. Otherwise, we'll never be able to chamber a good barrel if the ignition's wrong. I said, oh, no. So I opened my box. I said, these are custom actions. And he says, precisely, we need to check them. Everything's broken until we check it.
There you go. Yep.
And so he grabs the back of the bolt, and he starts doing his thing. And he goes, see that slop right there? We got to get rid of that. See this? He takes it apart. He goes, I think it might be dragging slightly here. And I'm like, my goodness. I said, they were perfectly fine until you touched them.
Right.
And he said,
no, they weren't.
He said, I don't have to do anything if you don't want me to. I said, no. My bad. Do whatever you feel like you need to do. So that's when I learned about blueprinting bolts, bolt shrouds, clearances, drag, firing pin fall, firing pin protrusion, all that stuff. So that's how I learned. That's when I learned the importance, which you guys live and die by that stuff as well, don't you, in Benchrest?
Well, we just see it more than anybody. We're at that tip of the spear at 100, 200 yards. You definitely can see if you swap out fire controls. You can see good from okay or good from bad. I mean, there's so much to that ignition and the fire control working properly. You can have a fire control where the cocking piece inside the shroud just drags just enough that it doesn't throw up a major red flag where it's spitting shots, but it's enough to turn a rifle that could be agging 18 ag into a 2.5 ag, 2.8 ag, and you think, well, I just don't have a great barrel, but it's buried in that ignition. And I tell you, the most true thing that was ever said was, everything is broken. Even brand new actions. You have to be so cynical about all your equipment and just constantly looking at everything. And even though it works now, later in the summer, triggers can drag. You can get dust, dirt in it, and everything is about ignition. And, it's really apparent. You see it in 22 rifles that have great ignition and those that maybe just have fair ignition, because it's everything in a 22. Well, that's even extrapolated when we get into center fire at short range Benchrest, when we're shooting for groups, when you have shots that are going places that it's not consistent with the wind direction or wind flow. And you've gone up and down in powder. You've done everything you can with seating depth. There's something that's just causing that ignition to drag just a little bit to make the difference in that, where that bullet actually is going.
So what are some of the symptoms? How can a shooter, somebody who's going out and trying to tune their rifles, how can they tell what's a sign that indicates that they have an ignition issue?
Really, it's where you have unprecedented shots that are hitting the target somewhere than when you expect. As your skill increases, you should be able to call the shot right to left wind, left to right wind, knowing if it's going to print to the left and high and a right to left wind, or to the right and low for left to right wind. And when you start having shots that are going in stupid places, not with the condition. And again, you're not too hot, you're not too light. Seating depth seems where it should be. Then there's just something that's dragging. And over the years, now 27 past years, I had a real education. We had a master machinist that was in Orrville, Ohio, did a lot of work on my guns. At the time, Charlie D'Alessandro, who showed me just a ton about ignition. And then I've been blessed, like other shooters, Wayne Campbell, Jeff Pinehart. I have a friend, Bob Jacobs. I mean, there's very few great gunsmiths. There's a lot of gunsmiths that know how to chamber a barrel, but the great gunsmiths understand ignition and can find problems. There was a story, Ron Hain, a friend of ours from St. Louis, great Hall of Fame shooter, had a brand new rifle. Tony Boyer was holding a school at 200 yards. And Ron came out at the range and was shooting and shooting groups, 5s and 6s in kind of benign condition. And at lunch break, Tony walked down to talk to Ron. He looked through his scope and he said, "Hey, put on a new barrel." And he said, "Tony, it is a new barrel." He says, "Well, we're going to work on your ignition. Something's wrong." And Ron just kind of rolled his eyes and just thought he had a so-so barrel. So Tony went to Ron's shop after dinner and Ron was working on the computer. Tony comes in. Tony puts the bolt in. He's dry firing it. Click, 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 clack, click. And Ron turned around and Tony goes, "Did you hear that?" He said, "I did." Now he had Ron's attention and the gun was not shooting. So on this particular action, he took the fire control apart and Tony had Ron mill like 5 thousandths off each side of the cocking piece, buffed it, put it back together. Ron was supposed to shoot it before the super shoot. This was back in like March of, I think 2005 or 6, something like that. And Ron arrives at the super shoot and goes out to practice. And the gun is absolutely on fire, just drilling holes. And he told his wife, Joanne, he said, "If I don't win the super shoot this year, it's not because I don't have the rifle to do it." And whatever the modifications that, with Tony's coaching, Ron did, that gun was on fire. As a matter of fact, that gun was shooting so well, if you could go back into Ron's shop, at 100 yards, one of the stages, Ron was shooting like zeros and small ones, clearly on the way to potential, super shoot record. And it started to rain on the 5th group. And he had a range shot an inch away from his main group, which I think was just a 0 and just, ruined the whole ag and stuff. Wow. But yeah, it is so important. And, and the same thing, you talk to people, what's a new action? Well, new actions all need work. And firing pins are crooked. You got things that are dragging. There's a myriad of things that, can happen. And the handoff and the cocking piece going over the top lever of a trigger is real important to where, and I learned this painfully, that you're pushing the bolt in. If the bolt just doesn't slide in easy, there's something that's not quite right. And I had a friend of mine, Bob Jacobs, at the super shoot working on brass and had my rifles out. He's like, "You mind if I put a bolt in and, safely check it?" First couple guns, no problem. But the one, it just held up and he pushed a little bit more and you could see the back of the bolt kick up. And he's like, "That's not good." So, it's real important to get those surfaces to where they hand off without putting a bind or a lift on the back of the bolt, which then makes your locking lugs, not seated properly. So little things really, really matter. And you do have to be cynical on anything you purchase and have someone who's really, really good, go through it and stuff. It's worth the money.
Yeah. I've done interviews on this channel with Jim Borden, and he has also discussed all that. I mean, as you know, Jim Borden, he's also a Hall of Fame Benchrest shooter. So he knows all about that stuff, and it's and I understand. I mean, I'm sure viewers right now are thinking, "Crap, well, my action's probably all kinds of things wrong with it."
Yep.
It's possible. All we're saying is you should probably check it. I don't know if you're aware, but we sell bolt shrouds for the Remington 700s that are incorporated all the speedy fixes that I learned over, about 15 years ago from him. We collaborated, and I have one right here. We have a cutout. We've discussed it, but it's got all the the longer boss, the larger boss, the clearances. It has all the relief where it needs to be relieved. We reduce the drag by more than 50%. I took all the speedy tricks, put it into a shroud, and it's drastic, the difference that I can make, right? Because some rifles are fine, but those rifles, it ain't gonna hurt a thing. But the ones that are bad, it's a big difference that I can make.
Oh, it is. And I'll tell you one easy thing that your viewers can try that really is kind of an acid test. Take your fire control completely apart. Put it all back together except for the spring. Hold your bolt up to where it's parallel. Slide the fire control back in the bolt and start tilting the bolt at an angle. If the firing pin is straight and there's nothing inhibiting the cocking piece from moving, that fire control and firing pin should go right through, protruding out the bolt face. If you have to start putting an exaggerated example of your bolt to get that firing pin to move, to come through and protrude through the bolt face, something is bound. The firing pin could be a little bit crooked, or something is going on in the back of that shroud with that cocking piece and that relationship of fit and finish. So that is really, really telling if you've got some ignition potential, dragging, or some kind of issue.
If you guys don't know how to do this, on my members forum on my website, I have an example. I've done all this for the forum members, so I'll link this in the video description of this video. I'll put a link to that video so you guys can check it yourselves. But it's very critical. It's very telling. I mean, I've done it to where I tilt. Speedy and I, we've sat across the table here, and we've actually done that demonstration where you take a shroud, just like this. That's why I have a lot of shrouds here, because we were discussing all that. But if you have the firing, I mean, it's everything except the spring, and you tilt it, and it's gotten to the point where you can go like that, and it still won't slide through, even though there's there's no spring. And then it finally goes, and then you flip it the other way. Now it's stuck again. It's just a lot of drag.
And again, going back to years ago with Charlie D'Alessandro, who was a mentor for me. And I had a new rifle, and he took the bolt, and we did that whole thing where it was sliding through. And he's like, all right, now put your thumb on the side of the shroud and try to shake it and see if that firing pin will still move freely through the bolt face. And it wouldn't. So out comes the dicom, and Charlie took the fire control apart and was over on the Baldor polishing, and keep trying till you could put a little bit of side pressure on the back of the shroud, and the firing pin would still move like a baby rattle. But it's interesting where those little things of clearances, and a lot of people think tight is good in bench rest, and we want minimal clearance. Well, minimal clearance will keep potentially a great shooting rifle from just being a so-so gun at best. It's best to have adequate clearance. You don't need too much, then we're going the other way. But we definitely need something to where the gun can be operational at its peak potential for ignition.
That's a major misconception about Benchrest that most shooters have. They think, well, Benchrest, they tolerances are really tight. No, they're not really tight. They're just not loose, but they're not really tight either, right? They're adequate.
It's precision, not clearance.
Correct. Yeah, it's not sloppy, but it's also not tight. And that's the big misconception that a lot of shooters have about Benchrest. They think, they have, they even refer to something as Benchrest tolerances, meaning, and they mean it's too tight. That's, I mean, because you guys use repeaters, right? And you guys
we're single shot.
Okay. So everything, but what about your hunter? Doesn't it have your hunter class? What's the rule there?
Hunter class and score. I still think that they're probably, or no magazine in it and stuff. So
Okay.
single shot is what we do.
Okay. But either way, you guys I've seen you guys shoot them so fast. I mean, I've seen, and you can't shoot a rifle that fast if it was extremely tight.
Yeah, no, it's things have got to fit properly and have enough clearance that's proper.
What about neck sizing?
Oh, how much time do you have?
Well, just a yes or no for now.
No, I mean, you addressed it in one of your earlier videos, and it's still, I'll get calls repeatedly from people. Hey, don't you feel a neck sizing die is better than a full length die? And I'm like, it may be if you're going to shoot really light squib loads, but at some point that brass is going to get a little work hardened. You're going to shoot a little bit hotter, and you're going to have a problem to where you cannot close the bolt. And the neck sizing dies, no disrespect to anybody, but they get people in a lot of trouble, and it does not guarantee the gun is going to shoot better. Matter of fact, as that brass, as you know, Eric, gets a little tighter, you're now inducing increased pressure by closing that bolt harder. That's like adding additional powder. And all of a sudden you get spit shots and things. So it's best when bolts close easy and you're not having to force things or jam things. That definitely it's not going to be conducive to great shooting rifle.
Well, and if you're forcing things, right, then you're probably galling your lugs, which is back to what we're talking about is ignition, right? All of a sudden your lugs don't meet up properly. All of a sudden you're forcing the bolt close, you're forcing it open, you're putting a lot of stress on that bolt, which in turn is going to screw up with your ignition and your alignment.
You have to find the proper full length die, and you've got to work with your gunsmith to help ask him to get involved with maybe a full length die that is best for the reamer that he used to chamber your barrel. Or if you've got your own reamer, you really need to find a full length die that will properly size the body of the case. And really all the problem that we deal in for any of the shooting sports center fire hunting, the back end of that case being sized enough. And not all full-length dies are created equal or will match the chamber. Early on, I had 4 perfectly good barrels rechambered because I got double clicking. No one was really explaining why. And at the time, a $36 Redding 77-211 6 ppc short base die, small base die, fixed the problem. And I spent $600 to have 4 perfectly good barrels rechambered, all because I really didn't have a mentor to say, wait, your full length die is just not tight enough. And that is a real perpetual problem.
So our full length sizing dies that we make, they're tighter than your average die, precisely because of that. Whether you reload this piece of brass
or this brass,
size matters.
No. Resize is the thing that matters. He's talking about resizing your brass. He's not talking about because I'm fine. Pretty,
That's why you need the Cortina Precision full length sizing die, because when you have to reload your fire brass, size definitely matters.
And just so we're clear, we're talking about the brass being smaller. Sometimes smaller is better, ideal, in fact.
Also, our mandrel dies that we make, they size the base, so they're not a small base die, but they are slightly smaller than the full length sizing die, so that, and you're not losing a stroke per se, right? Because you're going to run a mandrel anyway. So when you run the mandrel, you touch the base a little more, and that's just we do that so that you can keep those clickers away and the rifle functioning what I would call correctly, which goes back to the tightness, right? We don't want that to be tight. We want that to be loose.
Yep. Yeah, you don't want to be fighting the gun. I mean, fighting the gun is just inconsistency. You're moving the gun in a different spot in your bags. You're just upsetting, really. And that's the bags, the front rest. That's all part of the system when you're tuning that rifle. I've had people that the rear bag, the stock is riding on that seam, and it can work for some stock designs, but that rear bag, which gets into a whole nother chapter here, but if that gun is bouncing on that back of that bag at ignition, or the forearm is definitely torquing at ignition. You want support and not things just having to rock the gun all over inside the bags and things. It's definitely not going to shoot well if you're fighting the rifle.
You talk about having the proper handoff. You mentioned that earlier when you close the bolt and handing it off to, the trigger. Mm-hmm. The very first time I used Borden's BRMXD actions, he had a neutral handoff, which I had never felt before. It's always been the typical Remington, a slight cock on close,
Right.
And the very first time I used a neutral handoff it was amazing. It was an amazing feeling because the bolt you can close it with your pinky,
Right. Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, for F-class, that's the way to go because, the bolt lift is going to be harder, but you just fired this 7mm Magnum. I mean, everything's chaos at that point. Open the bolt. You set everything else up again. You throw another round in there. Now you can close the bolt super easily. You're not upsetting anything. But I tell you, the very first time I recycled a Borden BRMXD was, it was enough difference that I had to call Jim and ask him, what's going on here? And that's when he explained. I wasn't aware of the neutral handoff because I had never felt it before.
Right. Well, in Benchrest for us, especially with the 10.5-pound gun, and I've talked to Alex Wheeler at length about this, we see these little nuances, the cock on close versus maybe the, harder bolt opening. For us in Benchrest, I would rather have a handoff or a little bit cock on close to where you're feeling that bolt closing and that engagement in that trigger. Anything to me is better than a hard bolt lift just because of you've avoided the cock on close, or you're not fortunate that your trigger lever and your cocking piece on your given action are marrying up at the right time. And I just hate having to hold the gun to open the bolt. That's like, to me, a mortal sin, especially in the times where you're trying to shoot a little bit quicker, where the condition lets up. And fighting that gun is just, anything is, better than that.
Yeah. Well, again, it's different disciplines, right? For F-class, I don't mind simply because the recoil of the 7mm Magnum is going to upset the bags, the setup anyway.
Oh, for sure.
So,
and how heavy is that rifle you're shooting too?
22 pounds. Yeah. So it's way heavy.
In our 10.5-pound class, as you saw when you were shot the Hog Rose 2 years ago, I mean, you see everything that's going on. Yeah.
And you guys don't have to wait on a target puller.
Right.
You can just keep shooting. We have to wait anyway, Right. So again, now if for PRS, my PRS rifles are set up with a slight cock on close, about 20 thousandths, Right. And this goes back to having a gunsmith or somebody that really knows how to set up a rifle. Most gunsmiths don't do this. That it seems like a lost art. They buy the action, they slap a barrel on there, and good luck.
Right.
If it doesn't shoot, well, try another barrel.
Right. Well, yeah. And after 8 or 10 barrels, you're like, hands are up in the air. But it is, if you have someone, and there's so many good ones, I don't want to leave anybody out, but that really understand ignition and operation. You really want a gunsmith that's as cynical about the brand new action as you are, that, all right, I need to go through this whole fire control for you. And that's the best money, whatever you're being charged, that's the best money a competitor can spend, is to have a qualified, really a Benchrest gunsmith, someone who knows ignition and operation of the bolt, that can look for problems and address problems.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I remember like Jim Borden. I talked to him. I'd buy the actions from him, and then he sent them to me. And one day we're having a conversation about spring weights, and I said, "Yeah, I shoot in my F-class rifles. I have 28-pound springs." He goes, "No, you have 24." I go, "Sorry, Jim, but the minute I get your actions, I tear them apart and I go through them." And he goes, "Why are you doing that? Do you not trust me?" I said, "Oh, no, I do trust you, but I just peace of mind. I like to go through stuff because that's what I learned from Speedy." So I said, good news, I've never found anything wrong with it, but I still, I like the 28-pound spring simply because that's what I've always used. My everything's set up with a 28-pound spring. All my data is based on 28-pound spring. So I put in a 28-pound spring, but I have never found anything wrong with your, with your action. So that's good. And of course he had the same thing. He goes, oh, the 28-pound is just so hard to open. And I said, well, I get it. It's, right. But you know, to Jim's credit, his actions are built very well, and there's others like, you know, that are built
absolutely
well.
Yeah,
No, I mean, but you must check it in order to know for sure.
Yeah, and I mean the target is the acid test. If you find a good day, particularly at 200 yards, 200 yards is the best place, as you saw, for like tuning. You really see minute things, and if you have an honest day, I had a friend of mine shooting. He had a brand new rifle. And 200 yards, just shooting like mid fives in really kind of benign conditions. I'm like, something's not right here. And worked on his load. And I had a friend of mine who had a similar action, took his fire control out, swapped it right away. Night and day difference. The gun came alive. And he's like, oh no. I'm like, well, at least you know where the issue is. It's in your fire control versus our friends that, you know, put it in. I mean, it's really eye-opening.
Yeah, you talked about rimfires. We also sell shrouds for the Bergara B14Rs. It makes a massive difference. A good bolt shroud. Same thing with the RMX 700 that we sell. It's one of those things that, for the money, I believe it's one of the best investments you can make.
Yeah, that shroud and cocking piece, that fit. How that is, it's got to be right. I mean, tight it's just death. Your gun will not shoot. And, you know, and it can't be sloppy either. There's a sweet spot of, you know, clearance versus, you know, bind things.
So you talked about 200 yards as being probably a good place to do testing. And you talked about earlier as well about if the shot goes where you don't expect it to. For example, if the wind's coming from the right, but you blow it upwind, it shouldn't have wind there, and vice versa. In order to know this, we need to shoot over flags. That's something that most shooters don't do, including myself. I'm going to be guilty of it. Most of my shooting is done at 1,000 yards, so I do shoot with. There's, at least for me, there's indicators, and I feel like I have enough experience that I know where the shot should go. However, for the average shooter, especially at 100 yards, they think, and I'm guilty as well, that at 100 yards the bullet's not going to move. I learned that the hard way when I went to that Benchrest match. They move, and at 200 yards they move a lot. So, how many flags? I mean, I believe it would be an investment that's worthwhile for a shooter to have at least 1 or 2 flags out there when they're shooting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're totally wasting your time. Even if the shooters that want to get to the range in the morning, first thing, well, that can be some of the worst condition where it's benign, but you get either optical aberration from light changes early in the morning, or you do have those cold spots in the range. When we do maybe set flags, when we first get to a range to practice and it's in the morning, you can feel the differences and maybe some cold spots on the range where it's just temperature is a little bit different that will disrupt the bullet. But, Mirage is also a great tool. I love Mirage. When it's benign, 200 yards during our matches, like say Sunday morning and a regular 2-gun, where the flags aren't doing anything. And you're really maybe shooting sighters, hoping to get lucky, and whatever's not moving or moving, it's just, totally your luck that you're going to go up on the record target and shoot your 5 or 10 shots if you're shooting a limited class in a championship match with 10 shots. But why leave things to chance? Again, years ago, I was very, very fortunate. Hall of Fame shooter Perry Morton took me under his wing and taught me from hating the Mirage to absolutely loving Mirage. I mean, it's real-time wind that you can see. Mirage is best most honest when the condition is benign. When the wind picks up and things, then Mirage is not the same quality tool. But early in the morning, when you have your first matches and everything is dead, if you can pick up Mirage and even defocus your scope and start shooting when it starts to roll left or right, it's very honest. It's a great tool.
If our viewers were to go get some flags, what do you recommend and how many? At a minimum.
At a minimum. 100 yards, you really, if you're going to do it, you really need 4 flags. Placement at like 20, 40, 60, 80 really covers the range in any kind of movement. And local range knowledge is so important to kind of know, we've all been maybe Kelby's at the Super Shoot. The 60-yard flag was like everything. And different ranges have different nuances to where you can talk to some of the guys that have been shooting there to kind of understand where the priority is. We were shooting matches last year up near in Plymouth, Michigan, and that 40-yard flag, there was like a little alley that came out of the woods, a cutaway, and that 40-yard flag was everything. So it does change, but you can do 3 flags certainly, but just make sure you're putting them in the right place at 100 yards. And at 200 yards, you can do 5 flags and kind of stagger them out to between anywhere from 10 yards out to, 150. But again, knowing where that given range, where there's a lot of wind movement, it's so important.
Is surveyor tape enough of a flag?
To get you started, yeah, it'll show you your crosswinds. It'd be very difficult to pick up headwind and angle changes with surveyor tape. But by all means, if you have nothing else, at least you have some kind of an indicator of what the wind is doing to where, especially in the crosswind condition, you can kind of shoot when you're getting slight push, something that's an honest condition.
Yeah, it's, I saw it. It cost me, I went to the hog roast and I think I ended up 10th overall. Which I was surprised, but let's be honest. Jeff brought me a really good rifle.
Yeah, but you steered it. And you do need good equipment. You cannot win with poor equipment. I don't care who it is. If the gun is, moving shots around, you cannot dictate or understand where 30,000's here, 20,000's where that bullet's going. You have to know where that bullet's going to go. But you also did a great job too, Eric, and we want to have you back. So we need to get you engaged on the dark side of short range group Benchrest.
I'll be back. Don't worry, I'll be back.
Yeah.
But one thing that did happen to me is I had a 0 group going. It was just dot after dot. The hole just kept getting a slightly darker,
Oh,
and all of a sudden the flags were all green and one of them turned orange for my last shot. And I thought, well, there's no way it means that much. And I'm already at a 0. If I shoot now, I might get a low 1. I knew it might move, but I don't know how much to move. And I think if I move, there's a higher chance that I'll screw it up more than I'll just let it drift. It'll be low 1s. I just don't want to destroy my ag.
Right.
And I didn't want to stop because I go, is one flag flipping an indicator that they're all going to flip? And then I have to make a massive change. I'm against the clock, right? And then I got to make a massive. So I'll just send it now, walk away with a low 1 and protect my ag. It was a 2-something. Yeah. I put paper between it put paper between the freaking holes. And I was like, the minute I shot, I looked back and Andy was spotting for me and he just, he was using the spotting scope like this and he just went.
Well, it is. And sometimes you wonder, and especially when you have colder air, like in the spring, the aggregates are bigger in the spring because that cool air moves that bullet around. Kelby's Super Shoot in May, it's cooler. You look at the 2-gun ag versus when they would have the nationals in September and be warmer. The ags got much smaller with the, warmer weather, warmer temperatures, and certainly, winds are more benign in the late summer then.
So the colder air Is it heavier? Is that what makes the bullet move more, or what is it?
I don't think it's heavier, but I know that the bullets don't like when it moves around as much. So call it what you want. It's definitely more of a challenge and definitely has more of an impact. And
well, when the weather's cooler, the density altitude is lower, which means the bullet's not going to fly as good, and it may be makes it appear as if they drift. Well, they do drift more because the bullet is not as aerodynamically successful.
Oh, it's humbling. It really is when I try to shoot year round, when it's not too stupid out, but it's definitely humbling on the way home when it's been real cold and those bullets are just real hard to stabilize.
You talked about earlier about, when the wind's pushing from the right, the bullet's going to go left and up. When it's from the left, it's going to go right and down. That's aerodynamic jump. How? Because that's one thing that Jeff kept telling me, or actually Andy, when I was shooting the Benchrest match. He says when you're holding left, you got to hold up. And when you're holding right, you got to hold down, and you kind of got. And I said, man, I can't do that. I can only screw it up one way at a time. So I'm not gonna. And I didn't. And of course, when the wind was a little bit stiffer, and I was especially at 200 yards when I was a little bit more comfortable moving around.
Right.
My groups were narrow, but they were tall. And he says that's because you're not compensating for aerodynamic jump. That is and I believe the reason most shooters, we never see that is because our rifles they don't shoot as good as y'all's rifles. I mean, your rifle's almost like a laser pointer, and the wind will move it exactly like it should, right? It moves it left and up, right and down, and it's a minuscule amount, but when you're trying to shoot zeros, a zero group looks like one shot. 5 shots look like one. So how do you compensate for that?
Well, really it's about burning bullets, and you learn real quickly, just like you did, that, a component right to left wind that's starting to, get some strength to it. You do have to hold right and low because there's going to be a bullet or more of height in that vertical component, when you're got a right twist barrel against that right to left wind. So it really is experience. Try not to hold like headwind and tailwinds and stuff. If your load's right, it's going to cut that condition to where you'll have good groups. But there are times that you'll know, okay, if I'm shooting a 7 o'clock hard tailwind, that bullet is going to be driven down. When I'm on that condition and I see that wind intensifying where it's a harder tailwind, I know I've got to hold up like a bullet or more high. And not all ranges where these rules apply. That's the thing about it, depending upon the range you go to. And here it is. If you're at a range that's like St. Louis or some ranges that are perfectly flat, then those are really good rules to follow. But when you get into ranges that have a little bit of depression to it or valley, uphill, downhill, I mean, it's a lot of times these rules can go out the window. We shoot, IBS has match Mainville. It's uphill. And right to left wind, you think the bullet go to the left and high? No, it goes to the left and down, and you pull your hair out. How can this be? So a lot of times, if you don't have flat terrain, you'll need to talk to like the local guys about what the winds are doing on a given downhill range or uphill. Some flags become very important. St. Louis that we shoot on, that back end of the range, the 100, 150, a lot of people miss that, but those are key important flags. So different ranges will have different parts to where you really have to watch where that wind is. And a flat range will be more honest for that vertical component of left to right, right to left. But it's just about experience, and you just kind of know where to go on the fly to where you're not going back to the sighter. The sighter have just wasted so many good groups that could have been if the shooter would have trusted what he or she saw in that change in that wind and just immediately hold for it. And again, it's so hard. We all think small group, but it's really about the aggregate and getting through that particular match. Yeah, you may not have got that 120. You had 4 shots into a small one and you waited and waited. Had you have just trusted your gut, pull the trigger, you may have gotten a 180, but you elected to wait. And now, the world's gone upside down. You've got a change in reverse. And now you're looking at a 280 because, you should have finished the group. And that's so hard to do. And for all of us, I mean, we're all trying to, depending upon the condition, you're like, oh boy, we're going to have to go low today to be competitive. So, you definitely want to try to pick your spots where you're finishing the group versus waiting for that condition to come back. But always, if you can just hold off and finish the group, you're better off. But easier said than done, for sure.
Absolutely. And for me, being my first Benchrest match ever, I don't know the type of groups a certain condition would yield. Mm-hmm. I know that in F-class, right? For example, if it's really windy, really switchy, I'm not expecting a 200, which would be a 0 in your world.
Right.
I'm expecting somewhere around, 98 to 98% score, right? And it's not going to be a perfect score. And I'm okay with that, right? And I shoot through it knowing that I don't have to shoot perfect to stay in the hunt. Mm-hmm. For Benchrest being my first match, I had no expectation. So, of course, I'm trying to shoot all 0s, right?
Right.
Which, and I know if I shot all 0s, I would always win.
Right.
But I don't know when not to expect a 0, right? I don't know when I should have settled for, like you said, a 180.
Right.
Especially when I had a 0 going. I mean, that thing looked tiny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And especially because I had shot 2 0s the day before with that rifle. So and I hadn't shot one yet that day. Right. So I'm thinking, oh, this thing can do it. That's a 0. I'm about to walk away with a 0, and I'm going to wipe away all the high ones that I shot.
Right. But now you remembered. Now, if you were going back to the hog roast under the same scenario, you have 4 shots in an 080. And that 4th flag, 3rd flag, whatever it was on that range, turned and squared up versus where it was. What would you have done?
I'd move at least 1 bullet hole.
There you go. And
minimum. That would be my minimum.
Right. And had you done that, you had a 270 group, right?
Yeah.
What would that group size be?
Well, 243 divided by 2. So it'd be somewhere in the ones.
A 150 or 180, But, and those experiences, and we, unfortunately, we learn from our mistakes, not from successes. But next time you're going to go, okay, I'm just going to trust my gut. I see it, hold. Okay, you got a 160 or 180. But in the grand scheme for the ag, you move forward through that match, through that aggregate with, a good group. And you may not win early on or be at the top of the leaders, but you start putting 180s together and you watch how fast you climb up the 4th or 5th match. You're right there.
Yeah. It's a very interesting sport. I know on the surface it may seem boring, for lack of a better word, not as exciting as some of the other sports, because you're sitting down at a bench shooting at 100 yards and 200, just what the average hunter does on a weekend, right? Like that's what you guys do, except the excitement is not shooting at 100 yards. The excitement is shooting all 5 holes, making them look like one. That's the key. That's the challenge.
It is, and it's you have it in the DNA. I mean, a lot of us started. We had a bolt action rifle we used for hunting groundhogs, coyote hunting, whatever. I mean, that's kind of how I got started. Walt Berger, I was calling him up, trying to find more 52 grain MEF bullets, and I was spending more time, shooting groups. And Walt was, Jack, are you sure you wouldn't like Benchrest? It seems like you're doing more, target work than you are hunting. And you ought to go down to Kelby's. They're only an hour away and shoot the super shoot. And, oh my, that was 27 years ago and stuff. But, you kind of have, the people that really like accuracy, and certainly we love to tinker and gauges. Oh man, Mitutoyo, Starrett, whatever. But also you have to have a person that is willing to go out and compete. And that's not always everybody. I mean, again, going back to Charlie D'Alessandro, in Kelby's, a lot of the Benchrest rifles that are purchased or built today will never see competition. And when I heard that, I'm like, what? In 1997, when I ordered my first Benchrest rifle, I remember Jim Kelby telling me that, yeah, a lot of these guns we build never see competition. And at the time, I'm like, who would spend $1,595 on a beautiful Benchrest rifle and not shoot competition? And, it happens all the time. These different people I've had, and they have excuses. Well, maybe not this match, next match. I'm like, man, you got to jump in. I'm like, all right, it's been a year since you bought your rifle. Why aren't you shooting matches? And everybody is, well, I just don't want to get laughed at and stuff. I'm like, no, we all started in the same spot. You're going to shoot some small groups and you're going to shoot some big groups, but no one is going to laugh because we're all brothers and sisters working together to try to get better. And, it's just part of the learning curve.
I think it's going to be the opposite. They see you trying and struggling. They're going to help you,
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
I've seen it.
Yep.
I've done it. Now I'm going to call Jim and say, hey, I heard Jack said you sell Benchrest rifles for $1,599.
1997.
I had Eric Stecker on the podcast, and he told me obviously about Berger and Walt and all that good stuff. He mentioned something that he believes Benchrest is hard to get into, especially for the newer generation, simply because of how much work it is. Because you guys bring literally your entire reloading room to the range. And I'm going to be honest, I agree with him to some degree, because when I showed up, I mean, I was borrowing everything. I mean, Jeff Pinehart said, just show up. Just show up. And I did. He had bullets, powder, rifle, cleaning. Heck, he even had Andy to help me, because he said, oh yeah, you're not going to have enough time to, because you have 30 minutes from the time I got done shooting to the time I had to shoot again. In that time, you have to clean the barrel, size the brass, load the ammo, and be back at the bench. And he was right. The first few rounds I would have missed. Towards the end, once I got more comfortable, I would have been fine. But he was 100%. And I mean, I've done this. I mean, I clean rifles all the time. It's just nothing new. And I load ammo all the time. It was still very stressful. That was the most stressful part is between the matches. No, I mean, everybody's working. You get off the line, you go, you start working on the next one. You're making adjustments. You're reading your targets. Of course, I didn't realize the targets don't come off. You have to kind of, as you're shooting, that's when you read the groups and try to make the adjustments for the next go around. The point is, all I had to do is show up, and it was still a lot of work.
Yep. Oh, no doubt. But I tell you, we've made advancements in the MBRSA. We have a regional mentorship program that you can contact one of our regional mentors, and they will help you with equipment, everything you need from cradle to the grave to be competitive and stuff. In the IBS, Jeff Pinehart, who's the president, Harley Baker, a number of their members, they're very involved. And we had a match near Dayton, Ohio, a Shelby County match in June. Brian Robinson was a match director. He had found 6 brand new shooters. It was their first match. And those guys, we all helped. Everybody, it takes a village. And we're very sensitive now to, oh, wow, we've got a new shooter. Let's make sure their experience was positive when they drive home, that, hey, you know what? I want to come back. I want to shoot. And I think we're doing a much better job than we did years ago of getting that new shooter comfortable, make sure that they're safe in their reloading practices, and help them with equipment and things. Western Canada, Rick Pollock, Hugh Williamson, they have got a formula where They are opening up the range. They're going to have a Benchrest 101 clinic. They're adding new shooters constantly because they understand the ingredient of helping, making the introduction of Benchrest, helping people with equipment, teaching them how to shoot, maintaining that mentorship of increasing their skill, and making sure they're successful. If someone's struggling and they're not getting any help, they're not going to stay in the game or anything. Eventually they're going to, weed themselves on the way out because they didn't get any of the coaching or mentorship. But we're doing a lot better job. We're going to be doing this dinner and learn clinic at the IBS Group Nationals in a couple weeks, where we're going to buy everybody pizza, and myself, Harley Baker, Jeff Summers, who won the Super Shoot 4 times, and of course Jeff Pinehart. We've got a number of different topics that we're going to talk to people and educate them on. And
what's the date? What's the date for this?
It'll be Wednesday, August 6th in Camillus, New York, at the IBS Group Nationals.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean that's what it takes. I mean that's listen, I have yet to meet somebody who doesn't want to shoot small groups. Mm-hmm. It's addicting.
Oh, yeah, it really is.
On the classes, what classes do you guys have?
As shooting classes, we have 4 different classes. We have a light varmint class, 10.5 pound. We have a sporter, which is also 10.5 pounds. Heavy varmint, which is 13.5 pounds. And we have our unlimited class. I
see PRS, which is growing very rapidly. They keep adding classes. Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever considered doing like a factory class? Something that, PRS has a factory, I think they call it a factory class. But you can, they call it production class. They have a budget, a limit on how much that rifle can spend on the rifle. And it has to be from a manufacturer. You can't say, well, the budget's $1,500. I'm going to build a $1,500. No, you have to buy it. You have to go out and actually buy this rifle. Mm-hmm. And perhaps you guys could do a production class, optic and rifle, and you put a weight limit on that thing, maybe a little bit more heavier than your conventional, and perhaps they have to preload for the match. They can't load it, and that would obviously, in my opinion, it would get more people out there, just newer people. The entry limit is going to be lower because they don't have to go and spend a lot of money on a Benchrest rifle. But also, if everybody has to be preloaded, they don't have to worry about bringing reloading equipment to the range. They can show up, bring their ammo loaded, and it's going to be what it's going to be, right? Anyway, I don't know if you guys have had discussions like that, because that would be
a lot of discussions, and unfortunately, they kind of get grounded because then the rules just come out of the woodwork. Well, you can't put an aftermarket trigger in, no aftermarket barrel, no scope over, and it's like, guys.
Well, it's production, and that's what I mean. It would be production. So if you have to replace the barrel, it has to come from the manufacturer that produced that rifle.
Yeah, right.
And if you're going to replace a trigger, it has to be the exact same trigger that comes with that model when you buy it from the manufacturer. So it seems fairly simple. But now, I don't know many manufacturers making a Benchrest rifle precisely. I don't know. You can shoot off a bipod or whatever.
Right.
Right.
Well, if we can get them there, I'll provide a rifle. There's really no shortage of people that will trip over themselves saying, we'll take care of everything. You don't need, like you with Jeff Pinehart. I mean, if we have new shooters, we will coddle them. I'm traveling, usually have several rifles and an extra rest. So if we can at least get them there, even with or without the factory class, reaching the potential shooters is, always the challenge. But if we can get them to the match, we can provide them everything that they need. The only thing they need is just a little bit of desire and a smile and a willingness to learn. And we can ensure they have a great day.
Well, I'm actually very glad to hear this, because I'm going to be honest with you. I understand I had this opportunity. I felt this simply because it was me, and I didn't want to tell people this, that, hey, no, you just go and they'll provide everything. I'm 100% extremely happy to be hearing this, that hey, no, this opportunity is available for anybody. As long as, like you said, you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to show up and have a good attitude, you guys can help them. I'm glad to hear
there are countless stories, Eric, people that show up kind of, and you could spot, hey, I'm thinking about it. I'm about to retire, or I wanted to just look. And it's like, no, you're going to shoot. We'll get you to shoot. We'll give you a rifle. And before you know it, the larger matches, we have people that are shooting. And right now, we are blessed that we're seeing a renaissance of people coming into, the bolt action rifles and accuracy. We are seeing, a number of new members coming in and people that are new. I mean, my gosh, the hog roast, we had a couple new shooters. We had 6 brand new shooters at our Shelby County match. At our match at Kane, Pennsylvania, James Bendick, he's a newer shooter from Buffalo. He came in second in the 2-gun. He did very well in the hog roast. I mean, got local guys that are shooting very well. So yeah, it's great. Everybody for years I've heard, oh, Benchrest is dying. It's going to go away. It ebbs and flows. And certainly, we're an age group, with our demographic and stuff, but it's great to see that now we've got, a lot of younger blood, new blood that, hey, this is something I want to try and something I want to do. So we just need to help them be successful and have them have a good time.
That's how I was suckered into F-Class. I showed up. So there's a local 500-yard F-Class match every month. And I was a hunter, and I just wanted to become a better hunter, be able to shoot long range. And I was told about this match, so I showed up, and I sent an email, found out when they had it, and I just showed up, and precisely what you described. They said, hey, they knew I was a new guy, right? Everybody kind of knows each other. So the match director comes up to me and he said, hey, how you doing? And I introduced myself. He introduced himself. And I said, well, yeah, I just want to see how this works. He goes, no, you shoot. You're going to shoot. I'm like, no, I'm not ready. I don't have a rifle. He goes, no, right. You're shooting my rifle. And he goes, you can shoot my 223. Of course, we're shooting 500 yards. And I'm thinking, this guy's crazy, like 223. And he goes and pulls out this full-blown custom 223. And he let me shoot the rifle. It was amazing. The experience was incredible. I don't remember what my score was. It wasn't good, but I had so much fun.
Right.
The match director was Mark Farr.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Great guy. Great ambassador for our brand.
He's the one that did that for me.
Right.
And I'm telling you, here I am still to this day. And it's Mark Farr had a lot to do with it. I'm extremely thankful for Mark Farr for doing that for me, because he basically forced me to shoot. Listen, I wanted to shoot, right? But at the same time, I was like, I don't know, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
The typical fears that we have.
I don't want to embarrass myself when you really peel the onion back. And if you address it with them, say, look, you're going to shoot some small groups. You're going to have some really big groups. But pretty soon, the big groups will get smaller and smaller, and you're going to have a great time.
Yeah, it was a great time. And again, I'm still doing it to this day. And, Jeff Beinhardt, he said, we're having a discussion on this podcast. And he says, you come on out, just show up. And of course, I agreed to it. And typically, once I agree to something, I do it. And I showed up, and sure enough, he had everything for me. He had a great rifle. He had Andy helping me. He had it all set up, and I had a great time.
Yeah. Well, Andy's a great coach, and I wear Andy out. I talk to him about every day. I've been making bullets for about 3 years, and if it's midnight and I have a question, I'll call up Andy and stuff. So.
Yeah, it's but you know, I had a great time shooting Benchrest. I had to leave. I wish I had stayed for the ceremony, but you know, I had to go catch a plane, and I'll plan it better next time, because I think that's one of the things that I always try to do is stick around for the ceremony, because I believe those that worked hard to place, they deserve everybody else to clap for them, because one day those guys clapping will be the ones being clapped for. And I think it's an interesting and a very important thing to do, is to stick around and celebrate the winners.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. If you want them to celebrate your wins, you've got to celebrate theirs too.
Exactly. So Jack, what's next? What's next in the Benchrest world? What's next for Jack Neary?
You know, a lot going on. Certainly my role at Capstone and stuff keep me busy in sales. So enjoying that very, very much. But we've got, you know, kind of the crescendo of our season. We've got the IBS Group Nationals in a couple weeks. And then we have some regional matches within the MBRSA. And we also have the MBRSA Group Nationals in St. Louis starting September 15th. And, you know, just helping mentor new shooters, current shooters, and, you know, kind of spreading the word and helping people have a better time, better shooting experience.
So you talk about you're in sales at Capstone.
Mm-hmm.
You guys just released a 6GT brass.
Yes, we did.
How's that going?
Very, very well. Yeah, we just can't get enough product. You know,
that 6GT is an interesting cartridge. When it first was released, I felt it was solving a problem that didn't exist. I'm going to be honest.
Like so many.
Yeah. And you know, I think I've said this to George Gardner himself. But, you know, he had a very specific issue that he was solving with it, because the dasher was too short to feed reliably. The 6547, you guys had kind of discontinued, or not discontinued, but paused. Suspended the production of brass, which I find very interesting, because it spawned the 6GT, which now you guys are making brass for, because you guys suspended the brass for the 647. So extremely interesting. However, at the time, I just felt, I mean, you have the 6BR, 6 dasher, which, you know, George said that,
and all the variants, BRA, BRX.
Well, and then you have the 647 Lapua. Then you have the 6XC. Then you have the 6 Creedmoor. Like, where is the 6GT falling? It's just falling very tightly in between.
It's a niche. It's definitely a niche, and you get people that find some success with it, and then they become great ambassadors for that cartridge.
Yeah, and now, I mean, I see them all the time. You know, I have my Blackjack Challenge. There's a lot of 6GTs that come through here, and they do very well.
Right.
You know, and now the support from Lapua to be making brass, I think that's going to catapult that cartridge. I mean, it's already mainstream, you know.
Oh, yeah. It's, you know, definitely, like I say, for PRS shooters and stuff. And there's so many variants of the BR, BRX, BRA, get into the dasher and you know, all the different, you know, platforms in there. But yeah, and people love to experiment. They think, all right, here's a ballistic advantage. You've got, say, a 6.5 Creedmoor versus a 260 Remington. Well, 260 Remington really ballistically is superior to the 6.5 Creedmoor, but the Creedmoor gets some traction, and all of a sudden, you know, it's the next big thing. So you don't know. Things can be very fickle, market demand based on shooting competition, and someone that wins with it really can, you know, add gas to the fire.
Well, the Creedmoor, the benefit, and most people don't realize what made the Creedmoor popular, is that it was offered in fast twist barrels. The 260 Remington is kind of old school, where it was meant to shoot light bullets fast. The Creedmoor and its successors, you know, kind of the new cartridge, the new era, is to have fast twist barrels for heavy bullets, right? The 6GT, essentially the 6 Creedmoor is a 260 Norma. Remember back in the day that you had the
Oh, yeah,
6BR
right.
and then you had the 6BR Norma.
Yeah, Norma.
The Norma
Yeah.
simply meant it was meant for heavier bullets. You required heavier, faster twists.
Twist, right.
Same thing with the 6.5 and the 6.5 Norma. It was just faster twist barrels, longer bullets, heavier bullets. And now, you have kind of like the 7 PRC, same thing, right? You have heavy bullets, fast twist barrels that are available from manufacturers with a fast twist. So it's kind of like the new era. The if you want to shoot long range, you need heavier bullets, and that's something that we were not doing in the past. In the past, it was flat and fast.
Oh yeah, things evolve totally. In our game, if you were shooting bowtail bullets in the late 90s, early 2000s, you were looked really as an experimenter and not a competitor. And then Tony Boyer, 2004 IBS Nationals, St. Louis, took a barrel, cut rifle barrel with Lowell Hottenstein bowtail bullets, shot a 14 AG, and the world changed overnight to got to have cut rifle barrel.
And bowtail bullets.
Yep.
Because you guys were all flat base for a long time.
Oh yeah, forever. And the flat base are obviously they're still very, very good. It's just how the game has evolved into different things, and no different than any other shooting sport. The bar gets raised through competition, and the product follows the competition to where how can it evolve and get better.
Before we leave, I want to ask you about earlier. You said that somebody was on to possibly setting a record until they hit a range drop. Is that a thing?
Oh, very much so.
I mean, we've always wondered because we shoot in the rain all the time. I mean, I shot in the rain. Well, I was coaching in the rain no longer than 2 weeks ago. We're in Raton, and here comes a downpour, and we just keep shooting, right? You can barely see the target. You keep shooting, and obviously it becomes erratic, right? Like all of a sudden the shots don't go where they're supposed to. And as a coach, I asked myself, is it the shooter not being able to see, or is the bullet actually hitting raindrops on the way there?
Right. Yeah, it's happened to far too many people for it, to be, a bad, just bad luck. I mean, there is definitely science. That bullet hits that raindrop. I mean, a lot of us that have been shooting for a long time have had, matches to where, you've had a proverbial rain shot. And certainly it could be rain getting in the muzzle of the barrel. And, if it's raining that hard, we'll definitely want to shoot a sighter to clear the barrel. But, if bullet hits raindrop, I mean, you're going to have something that's going to fly. And we've all been burned by it in short range Benchrest.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting. Jack, I know I can talk for hours, and
me too.
Every conversation I have, it's just additional questions pop up. Could I get you back to do a Q&A with my forum members
Sure.
of my website?
Yep.
We'll set it up, and I'll have them, we'll do a live stream for everybody to see, but we'll let the forum members ask you questions. Once I release this episode, I'll let them know about it, and they can formulate some questions for you, because it's extremely interesting. The amount of knowledge that you have is amazing. And I think every time I have you on, I know shooters get excited about Benchrest, which I'm excited about it right now. I mean, it's a great sport. Shooting those tiny small groups is extremely rewarding.
No, and it again, just getting people exposed to it. And I want to take this opportunity to hijack your podcast. Myself and Hall of Famer Harley Baker, friend of mine, Jeff Summers, 4-time winner of the Super Shoot. We're launching our All Things Benchrest with Friends, and we'll be doing podcast here very soon. We've already recorded a couple different segments and things, so we'd definitely like to have you on, and a host of other people in the industry. So
absolutely.
Yeah, no, and again, people are just clamoring. Literally every day I get an email or phone call asking about everything from ignition, wind flags, you name it, A to Z. There's just, there's a lot of information out there on the internet, but like anything else, the good information isn't always on the internet. And, people certainly enjoy the content that you provide with good information across the board on product, and how to use it, loading. And, I'm like, you know what, we're going to do this too. And, just a number of people really want, more and more and more.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. All right. We'll set up this live stream, this Q&A with the forum members. We'll announce it. You guys will know about it. And Jack, let's line up our schedules and make it happen, please.
Yeah, look forward to it. That'd be great.
All right, Jack. Thank you. And keep them small, as Speedy would say.
Yep, for sure. All right, boss.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.